Hello friends! Today we are gonna create the fastest and the most SEO-friendly blog website using static site generation. It's the best way to create blazingly fast websites because we don't need any database connection, we don't have to fetch any data, we will just create our content using Markdown and its metadata. And it will generate an HTML file based on our design. So when a user makes a request, this HTML file will be served immediately. And since our pages are static and contain all metadata, they are easily indexed by search engines. This is the technology GitHub uses to create user pages, Vercel uses to build Next.js documentation, Jeff uses to showcase his products, and I use to write my developer blog. And in this tutorial, we will create a similar blog application. And for the static site generation, we will be using an open source framework called Hugo. You will learn how to design a Hugo website from scratch, how to add a new content, how to create a relationship between different contents like categories, tags, or users, and what are the important points to improve SEO and page speed. Our website will be pretty fast, but if you don't use a good hosting provider, it won't be fast enough to serve users. So I recommend you to use Hostinger. It's the sponsor of the channel and I have been using their servers for almost 3 years and never had a single problem. And now there is the biggest discount of the year, only for Black Friday. You can get a hosting plan and a free domain at this insane price. And when you choose this plan, you can deploy 100 websites without any bandwidth limit. If you wanna get a faster storage and free CDN, you can consider the business plan. Don't miss the Black Friday offer, choose your time period, and if you use the link in the description and apply Lama Dev coupon code here, you will get an extra discount. After purchasing, you are ready to claim your free domain. I will choose hugoblogapp.com. Let's claim. After the registration, we can set up our hosting. Let's create an empty website. I will choose my domain name and finish the setup. It will take a while, and after that we are ready to deploy our websites. So if you are ready, let's create our blog and deploy it using this panel. Okay, the first thing I'm gonna do is create a new folder on my desktop. Let's say blog app. This is gonna be our project folder. So let's open up VS Code and drag and drop this folder here. Right now we are ready to set up Hugo. Let's open up the official website and I'm gonna click on Quick Start. And as you can see, we should install Hugo and Git. You probably have Git installed, but if you haven't, just click on this link and find the way to install it on your operating system and do the same thing for Hugo. I'm not going to show you how to do that, it's really easy. And after that, I'm going to open my terminal and create a new website using this command. I will say Hugo, new site, and it's going to be the folder name, but we already created a folder. So I'm going to open up my terminal and I will say Hugo, new site, dot. And dot means install everything inside this current folder. I will enter and our folders are here. By the way, if you are using Windows, do not use command prompt or PowerShell. You should install Windows subsystem for Linux or Git Bash. You probably have them, but in any case, I just don't want to skip anything. Okay, let me explain the folder structure. Archetype folder contains all the default data for the new content. When we create a post, you will understand better. In this assets folder, we are going to store our resources like CSS or JavaScript files, but you can use the static folder also and the content folder contains all our Markdown files. So our posts will be here. Inside data folder, we can store our JSON or XML data, but we don't need this. And this folder contains tables for another languages. And we can store our themes here. Let's check the themes page. I'm gonna come here. As you can see, there are tons of different themes here. You can choose any of them and download, but of course, they are really basic and we want to design our own website. So we are not gonna use any of them. And in this case, if you wanna create your own theme, you can use this layouts folder. As you can see, it's empty. We don't have any file. So when we start our application, you won't be able to see anything because we don't have any layout yet. Of course, we will create them, but for now, let's install a theme and learn the basics of Hugo. And after learning how it works, how to add new posts, what pages and components we are gonna need, we can start creating layouts. So let's get back to the documentation. And I'm gonna install this theme using git. Firstly, I will say git init, and after I'm gonna install. I will copy here. And I will paste. Okay, right now our theme is here. And to use it, we should let our application know that we want to use this theme. So I'm gonna open my settings file and add here theme and the name of this theme. Let's copy and paste. And you can do exactly the same thing by calling this command. It basically says write this string inside this file, as we did here. And after that, we are ready to run our application. I'm gonna run this command, Hugo server. And it's that fast. Let's open up this port number. I'm gonna copy and paste here. As you can see, this is our website and this is our theme. This is the title of our website. Here, we can change it. Let's say Lama Dev blog, like that. And right now we can add a new post. Let's come back. To add a new post, we are going to run this command, Hugo new content. And here we are going to add our path name. And when we run this, it's going to create an MD file inside this content. Let's do that. I'm going to copy this. Let's stop our server using Ctrl+C and I'm going to paste. Let's check. As you can see, we have now the post folder and inside our first post. Let's click. As you can see, it generates a new title using this file name. It just replaces those dashes with these spaces and capitalizes our words. And it generates a new date. And by default, our post is draft. So basically, this is the post details. And we call this Frontmatter. And you can add here whatever you want, like a short description or a username or cover picture. And instead of writing them again and again for each post, you can change the defaults. When you run this command, when you create a new content, Hugo is going to check your archetypes and default MD. And as you can see, it generates a title, date, and draft is true. If you want to, you can add here something else. Don't worry about these codes. It looks weird at the beginning, but you don't actually have to learn the Go language from scratch. I'm going to show you everything you need to know. So you can change the default values and add new items here. And next time you create a new content, it's going to use them. I'm going to take this back and close here. By the way, the type of this Frontmatter can be YAML, TOML, or JSON. It doesn't matter which one you are using, but by default, it's Tamil. Basically, we are using plus sign here, and when we define our variables, we are using equal sign. And after this information, finally, we can add our real content. Let's check the example. Let's create our content using this Markdown. Let's paste. I'm gonna shrink here. And I'm gonna save. So we are ready to run our application. To do that, I will say Hugo server. But since our post is draft, we will not be able to see our post. To prevent this, I'm gonna use the development server. So I will say D, and let's see. I'm gonna refresh here. And as you can see, this is our first post. Let's check. This is the path that we have created. Our post information is here, the title, the date, and as I said, you can use the user image, cover image, whatever you want, and after the real content here. It's that easy, guys. If you already know how to use Markdown, if you created GitHub README files before, you can start creating your blog posts. But if you don't know, don't worry, I will show the basics. And also I will share the cheat sheet in the description below, so you can check that and practice. And this is really important because if you want to be a good developer, you should definitely know how to create clean README files for your GitHub repositories. And this structure might seem a little bit weird, but actually it's really popular. Many developers use MD files to build their blog pages, and most of the documentations are built with Frontmatter like Next.js. Let me show you the example. Okay, I'm gonna paste here. As you can see, this is the official documentation of Next.js. And if you check one of these pages, you are going to see that they are using MD files. And inside, they have Frontmatter and after the content itself. So this is the best way to create static multi-page websites. Okay, let me give you some Markdown examples, just the basics, and after we can design our blog from scratch. So you can learn how to create your own theme. By the way, it doesn't have to be blog or documentation. You can create any website you want. If you don't have thousands of products, you can even create an e-commerce website. Let's check one of the most famous web developer on the internet. Probably you already know Fireship, and this website is using Hugo. Let's check. As you can see, its content is here and all the courses. And this is the Frontmatter. It has title, description, tags, user, and the video link. And here is the content. So if you want to create a small application, I highly recommend using Hugo. If your data is not changing all the time, you don't need any database. Okay. So let's remove this and let me show you the Markdown syntax. If you want to create an H1 tag, you are going to use just one hashtag and write here title H1, and for H2 tag, title H2, H3 tag, and let's write here anything. This is a test, and I want to make this test bold. Let's say actually bold text. And if you want to create a code, you can use this sign and write any code here. And if you want to create an ordered list, you can use the number dot and after, let's say list item 1. And for unordered list, you can just use dash, first item, second, and third. And if you want to use any code, you can use backticks, and it's going to be code sample. And you can use HR tag using 3 dashes. And if you want to add a link, firstly, you are going to write your text, Lama Dev website. And after, you are going to write here your link. Let's say https lama.dev. And if you want to add any image, firstly, you can add here the alt text, the description of the image, and after the link URL. Let me add here an image. I'm going to create here a new folder, and it's going to be images. And inside, let's add this image. And I will just say images folder test.png. That's all. By the way, if you want to use Markdown effectively, I highly recommend to use this extension. As you can see, it's more than 7 million accounts. And it makes everything much easier when you create your markdowns. And let's see. I'm gonna close my menu here. And after saving, let's see what we have. As you can see, our titles, bold text, code, lists. This is the code. This is our link and image. It's that easy. If you want to learn more about Markdown, you can visit this repository. By the way, it will be in the description below. And you can find here every little detail. Of course, you don't have to memorize anything. Just practice, and when you don't remember, just come here and check. Okay. Let's open up the home page. And I'm going to create some other contents. Actually, let's copy this and paste. Like that. As you can see, we have 10 items. And as you can see, this theme is showing the first 3 posts, and after there is some kind of pagination. Of course, it's a little bit weird. They didn't prefer here using numbers. Instead, they are using the titles. But what we are going to do is creating here a pagination. And also we are going to create some categories, and maybe we can add multiple users. But first, let's see which layouts we are going to need. Let's open up themes and let's check its layouts. I'm going to click on default. And as you can see, there is a base of HTML. Basically, this is the main HTML file that we are going to show in every single page. Basically, this is the main layout. And in this layout, we can show our navbar, footer, or any other component. And after that, we are going to create the list page that shows our posts, single post page, and we are going to create our categories here. We will be able to create our not found page, and inside these partials, we will create our small components like navbar, footer, or any other small components. So it's going to be just like React. So we don't need this theme anymore. We are going to create our own. So I'm going to close here. And let's close content here. And let's close those pages. And I'm going to terminate my server. So let's create our first HTML file. Firstly, I can delete this folder. We don't need this anymore. And inside layouts, let's create our first page. And it's going to be not found page. Let's say 404.html. Let's create an HTML file. And I can give here any title, not found. I can write the same thing here. And I'm going to give a link. If it's not found, we can be redirected to homepage. So I will say go to homepage. Let's test. I'm gonna run my app. Of course, our application is still looking for this theme. To prevent this, I'm gonna remove this line. I will save and start again. Let's see. As you can see, this is our first page. It runs the not found page because we didn't create any home page here. Or if we write here a post that doesn't exist, again, we are gonna see this page. So what about our home page? To create that, I'm gonna come here and create a folder, and it's gonna be underscore default. And the first page will be list.html. Let's create a document and the title will be, actually it can stay like that. We are just testing for now. And I will say this is the home page. Let's get back. As you can see, this is the home page. And when we create any post, we are going to see that post inside single HTML. Single page. But if you remember, we created our content inside this post folder, but I don't want to use any folder. It's going to be directly our website and the post name, like that. To do that, I'm going to delete this post. And now I'm going to create a new content. Remember how we are doing this. Hugo, new content, and my file name, let's say my first post .md. And I'm gonna delete this. It's gonna be false. By the way, I can change this default and it's gonna be false. It's not gonna be draft. And let's write here something. This is my first Markdown post. Okay, let's see. What was the name? My first post. And it's here. If I write something else, this page doesn't exist. I'm gonna enter, and as you can see, 404. Okay, I can close here. And right now, instead of creating a new document for each page, I'm gonna create a base file here, and I will create this document, and I'm gonna call my home page, single page, or any other pages inside this body. Basically, it's gonna be our main layout. To do that, we are gonna be using base of HTML. Let's create here. I'm gonna create here a container, and inside this container, I'm gonna add my pages, but before, let's add the common components. Remember, to do that, we are using partials folder. And inside, we are going to have a Navbar. Let's say nav. And we are going to have a footer. Let's create a div, and the class name will be footer. And let's use these components inside our base of HTML. If you are using React, it's just like calling the Navbar component like that. But in Hugo, we are going to call our components using double curly brackets, partials, and the name of the file, which is Navbar. And after I will say dot. And I'm gonna do the same thing for footer. And between them, we can call our pages. To do that, let's open up the home page. Right now, we don't need this document anymore. We can directly create a div. Let's say list div, and it's gonna be home page. And for the single page here, I'm gonna do the same thing. Let's say single class name, and it's gonna be single page. But how I'm gonna use them here? To do that, I'm gonna define a block and use those blocks between these two partials. What I mean by that? Let's close them, by the way. I'm gonna open list HTML and I'm gonna define here a block. And it's gonna be main. If you use any PHP framework, it might look familiar. It's really easy to use. We are just defining our main block here, and it ends at this point. And we can use this block inside our base of HTML. To do that, I will say block and the block name and dot. But of course, we should end this here. But in this case, we will not be able to see the single page. So we have to do exactly the same thing here. So I'm gonna define main and end here. Let's see. Let's open up the home page. Okay, there is something wrong. Oh, I said partials. It's gonna be partial. As you can see, the color is red right now. If you want to see this color changing and other Hugo snippets, you can use this extension. It's going to help you to write your functions, especially if you are not familiar with Go language. Okay. I'm going to save and let's see again. As you can see, Navbar, homepage and footer. Let's open up our post, my first post, and single page. Okay, perfect. So right now, let's give a style for our container and our website will be responsive. To do that, I'm gonna come here. By the way, let's remove this image. We don't need this anymore. And inside static, I'm gonna create new folder and it's gonna be styles. If you want to, you can create here JavaScript folder. Later we are gonna use it, and inside styles, let's say style.css. Let's call this file here using link, and it's gonna be CSS folder and style.css. Let's test. I'm gonna choose my class name and write it here, and I will say background color red. Oh, I said CSS is gonna be styles. And perfect. So instead of this red color, let's give a dark background. To do that, I can define a variable. Let's remove this, and I'm gonna say root, and inside I will create bg variable. This is gonna be the main background color, and I'm gonna create the softer version, bg soft. It's gonna be dark again, but a little bit softer. And I'm gonna create text and text soft colors. So this is gonna be our main text color and the softer version. So let's use this inside the body. The background color will be bg and the text color will be variable and text. Like that. And if you create an anchor tag on your website, let's test. And go to the home page. As you can see, it has a default color and this underline. To prevent this, I'm gonna choose all anchor tags inside our website, and I will say color should be inherited from the parent, so it's not going to have a default color, and the text decoration will be none. Like this. And as you can see, there is a space here from top and left. To prevent this, I'm gonna choose my elements globally and I'm gonna say margin 0. And the box sizing will be border box. If you don't know why we are using like that, if you don't know why we are using our colors inside body, or what is this root file, you can check my previous CSS video. There are some awesome CSS tips and tricks, and that video will be in the card on the right top. Okay, so I can write my container. Let me shrink this first. Firstly, I'm gonna give a max width, and it's gonna be 1366. Let's give some padding from left and right, and it's gonna be 50 pixels. I'm gonna center my container. To do that, I can use margin auto, and the minimum height of this container will be 100 VH. Let's test. I'm gonna give it background and this color. As you can see, it's centered. There is a padding here and on the right side. This is what we want. Let's separate our items. Our navbar will be on the top, footer will be on the bottom, and on the middle we are gonna see our pages. To do that, I can use flexbox, display flags. Direction will be column, so it's gonna be vertical. To separate our items, I'm gonna use justify content and space between. Okay, if you say center, is gonna center them in the middle of the container. If you say space around, it's gonna give some space at the beginning and ending. But if you say space between, the first element will be at the beginning, the last element will be at the ending, and our pages will be at the center of this container. Okay, right now let's give the responsiveness. If we use different device, we are going to change the size of this container. Let's open up our console. I'm going to come here, by the way, it's the mobile version. Let me choose the desktop. And for big screens, we are going to see our website like that. So let's use a media query. I'm going to come here and say media. If the maximum width equals 1536, the maximum width will be this size. Let's say container. And for the other screen sizes, if it's this size, it's going to be smaller, 1280. And if it's this size, it's going to be even smaller, 1024. By the way, those are the common breakpoints. You don't have to memorize them, just check on the internet what are the common CSS breakpoints and you are gonna see those numbers. Let me write them and after you are gonna understand better. If it's this size, it's gonna be 768. In this case, it's gonna be a mobile screen. I'm reducing the size because in any case, we are going to have some space between left and right. And if it's 640, the maximum will be 475 pixels. Let's see right now. I'm going to shrink my page. As you can see, it's changing. This is what we want. But this space is always 50 pixels, but for the mobile screens it's too much. To prevent this, let's come here and say padding left 10 and padding right 10. Remember at the beginning it was 50. Okay, perfect. This is how we are creating responsive layouts. So let's take care of our navbar. I'm gonna remove this color. I'm gonna open up my navbar. Let's close them. If you want to, you can create different style here, like navbar styles.css, and you can use it on your component styles.navbar, /navbar. But in our example, we have only 2 components and 3 pages, so we don't have to separate every single CSS file. Instead, I'm just gonna use this style CSS and I'm gonna write everything here. But if you prefer, as I said, you can use it like this. I'm gonna delete that. And I'm gonna give here a class name. And it's gonna be Navbar. And inside, we are gonna have a logo div and our links. Let's create an anchor tag. When we click on our logo, we are gonna be redirected to homepage, and let's say Lama blog. And here, inside links, I'm gonna create 2 links here. The first one will be homepage, and the second one will be categories. And after that, let's create a search button. And inside, I'm going to create a span. And let's say search. And before this text, I can add a search icon. To do that, you can add an image here. But remember, page speed and SEO is important for our website. You shouldn't use big PNGs or any other large images. Instead, try to use SVGs or WebP images. I'm going to show you how you should use your images during this tutorial. Let me just copy and paste my icon. Every file, every images and SVGs will be in the GitHub repository. But if you ask me, how do I find these SVGs? I'm just using svgrepo.com. Just search for any icon you want. For example, this one. You can edit your icon here. You can change the color. And after, just copy the SVG and paste here. That's all. It's that easy. Okay. As you can see, it's here. And that's all for now. Let's give a style. After container, I'm going to say Navbar start and end. And between those texts, I'm going to create my Navbar class. I'm doing this because we are using only one file. When you come back and when you want to change something, just search for Navbar and you are going to see this text. And it will be much easier to find your items. Okay. Firstly, I'm going to separate my items. It's going to be horizontal. So let's use display flags. By the way, it's not horizontal. Oh, it's not inside quotes. Okay, let's separate our items. Just write content space between. And I'm gonna center them vertically. To do that, I will use align item center. Perfect. And let's do the same thing for links container. Display flags, align item center, and gap between each link will be 20 pixels. Like that. By the way, let's give a height for our navbar. It's gonna be 100 pixels. Perfect. Let's center those items. What was the name? Search button. Display flags, align item center. And the gap between text and icon will be 10. And let's give here background and text color. Background color will be our soft color, BG soft, and the text color will be text soft. Okay, let's give some padding, and I'm gonna give here border radius. Okay, perfect. So let's change our texts. For logo, font weight will be bold and the font size will be bigger. And for links, again, font size will be bigger, but it's going to be 20. But for mobile screens, for small screens, it's going to be smaller. I'm going to copy this. And for this small screen, I'm going to say font size will be 14 pixels. Okay, but if I make this bigger, as you can see, it's 20 pixels. Okay, let's check for the mobile screens. As you can see, there is no problem. And let's do the same thing for footer. I'm gonna open up the footer page, partial, and inside we are gonna have two parts. It's gonna be our links, and for the right side we are gonna add our social media icons. Let's do that. The first one will be our home page. Second one will be categories. And the third one will be sitemap. Like that. When you build your application, it's going to create a sitemap inside the public folder. And using this sitemap, search engines are going to index your website faster. Actually, it's almost 2024. We don't need this. But back in the years, when it was 2010 or even before, we were using our sitemaps like that because search engines were not that much fast to index that amount of pages. But now you don't have to add your sitemap, but in any case, you can use it in the footer. It might help to increase your SEO. Okay. And after this, by the way, this is gonna be our links. Let's say footer links. I'm gonna wrap them and footer social. Actually, let's directly say social. And again, I'm gonna use SVGs and my social media accounts. Let me just copy and paste like that. Let's see. Okay, as you can see, my social media accounts and their links. Let's separate them. I'm gonna come here and I will say footer start and end. And between them, I will say footer, display flags, align item center, and I'm gonna separate them. And again, height will be 100 pixels and the font size will be smaller, 14 pixels. Okay, I can give a gap. I will say social. Gap between each item will be 10 pixels, like that. By the way, I can give separator between my links. Let's open up my links here. And I'm just going to add here this pipe. Okay. Let's check. Perfect. And what about our list here? When we create our content, we are going to see a list. Let's check our example actually. It will be easier to understand. As you can see, this is our post list. And after we are going to add here the pagination component. But don't worry about that. You don't have to write any single code. It's a built-in function in Hugo. We are just going to write our function inside our list. And after that, we will give style for each item. But before, we should show our items. I'm gonna close everything and open up my list. And let's remove this. And I'm gonna call all my pages using paginator and pages. And we should end this here. it represents all the content we have. Basically, you can consider this as an array, and we are going to map through this array and create differently for our each post. You are going to understand better right now. So how I'm going to map through my content? To do that, I'm going to be using range. As you can see, the syntax is like that. And using each item, we can create anything we want here. And in this case, it's going to be this single item. So let's say list item. And inside, we are going to have two sections, this image section and texts. And inside texts, we are going to have title, description, these details, which includes our user image, username, and the date. And after, we are going to add our categories here. But before doing this, let's edit our post because we don't have any image or user or any category. So what I'm going to do is open my archetype and my defaults and add here some more items. These are defaults, remember, but you can add here anything you want. So I'm going to say description, image, and also we are going to have a big image. Let's say image big, because we are going to use it for the single page. And after, we are going to have our categories. It's going to be an array because we can have multiple categories. And we will do the same thing for our users. Let's say authors. And by default, it's going to be, let's say, Lama Dev or your name. You can give default category like general. You can add here the user image like avatar. I'm going to say images and avatar.webp. So this is going to be our default avatar. Let me move this image inside images folder. So we are going to be using this one. And I'm going to save. And when we create a new content, it's going to use those defaults. So I'm going to delete this content and add a new one. Okay. Title will be my first post. Let's give some description here. This is a description. Let's give any image. And the big one big, one small. And I can add here any category. Let's say life and music. It's gonna be Lama Dev and the avatar. Okay, let's add those images also. I will drag and drop them. I just generated some basic images here. I didn't want to waste time, so we are gonna be using them. Okay, let's say task content. And let's create others. We have 5 items here. So let's create 5 contents. I'm not going to open my terminal. I'm just going to copy and paste. Let's say my second post, third post, and others. I'm going to just change the titles. And images. Okay, so let's close them and open up list again. And for each post, I'm gonna write here just test and let's see. As you can see, we have 5 tests. It means it's working. We have 5 contents. Right now, instead of this test, I can show my image and other texts. So let's say image, and we are going to be using this image URL. To do that, we are going to be using, again, 2 curly brackets, and inside params.image. And for this alt, we can use this title, but remember, it was default. We didn't create this, so we don't have to use params. We can directly use it like dot title. Let's see. Perfect. Our images are here. So let's create our texts after this image. Actually, let's give here class name so we can give style. List item image. And I will say loading lazy. So when we call our website, firstly it's going to render our texts, and after it's going to load our images. And after this image, let's say list item texts. Inside we are going to have h1 tag. Inside I'm going to create an anchor tag, and it's going to be our title. Perfect. And when we click on this title, it's going to open up the post page. To do that, we can use permalink. Basically, it's the link of our content. Let's see. Perfect. And after, description, details, and categories. After h1, by the way, let's give class name, list item title. I'm going to create a p tag, and it's going to be list item description. And again, remember, we created this variable, so I'm going to use params.description. And after that, I'm going to create a div. It's going to be list item detail. And again, an image is going to be the user avatar. Remember, .params.avatar. And again, loading lazy. And after that, let's create a span. It's going to be our username, but there will be something important here. So I'm going to leave it after our date. So let's create a time, and it's going to be .date. Remember, we are not using params because we didn't create this. It's by default. And let's see. Okay, there is something wrong here. I misused our codes. Here. This extension is great, but when you try to fix your code using Ctrl Command and F, it might cause that kind of problems. But anyway. Okay, perfect. But as you can see, the format of our date is not what we want. I just want to see the month, the date, and the year. To do that, I'm going to give an example to my settings, and it's going to use that format. Let's open up Hugo Tomel, and here I'm going to create params and add here additional data like date format. And I'm going to give an example here like that, and using this format I can transform my date. So I will say date format, and I'm going to use my parameter here. But remember, we are in these pages, so if I use .params date format, it's going to look this format inside our content. But if you are using any params inside the settings, main settings, you have to use it like .site, .params, and whatever. So let's see right now. I'm going to save. and perfect. Let's give a style, and after that I'm gonna show you how to create categories and users. So when we click on the username, for example here, I'm gonna click here. As you can see, it opens another list and it shows the post of this user. Of course, it's exactly the same user, or if you choose any category here, again, it's gonna show the posts belong this category. For example, I'm gonna choose coding, so it's not gonna show this post. We can see better. As you can see, only 2 posts. But before, let's give this style. I'm gonna separate my items, display flags. I'm gonna give gap between them, and these tags will be vertical. Let's do that. I'm gonna open my style file and move it here. After footer, I can say list start and let's choose list item, display flags, align item center, gap between items will be 50 pixels. And for each post, I'm gonna give margin bottom so we can separate our items like that. Let's give a style for those images. List item image is gonna be 200 pixels. And I will say object with cover. So if you add some other images here, it's gonna crop the image and fit inside this container. 200 pixels container. Okay. After that, our texts, display flags, flags direction is going to be vertical, remember, and gap between each item will be 10 pixels. And for this detail, let's center them vertically, item center, and gap between each item, and the font size will be smaller. Of course, we don't have username yet, but you can see the font size. And what about this avatar? Did I give class name or not? Okay, I forgot. Actually, let's say list item avatar, because we are going to use different avatar inside the single page. I don't want to mix them. So let's say 24 pixels. Border radius will be 50%. And again, object width will be cover. Okay, awesome. Of course, we didn't show our categories, but for now, for the test purpose, after this detail, I'm going to create list item categories, and inside an anchor tag, let's say music for now, for the test. I'm gonna give class name for this. Actually, let's create 2 more. Okay, let's use them. Gap between each category will be 10 pixels. For each individual category, I'm gonna give some padding. Border radius will be 5 pixels. I'm gonna give background color, and it's gonna be our soft color. And the text color will be text soft. And again, font size will be 14, like that. Okay, if you remember, we have used arrays for our categories and authors. So it means we can filter our posts using these items. And we can show every single item here inside our pages. How we are gonna do that? Let's get back to the list. And here, again, I'm gonna use map using range. I'm saying map because I'm a JavaScript developer. Of course, it's not map, range is range. And to use my categories, I'm gonna say get terms and the name of the array, and it's gonna be categories. It's that easy. Right now we have chosen all our categories, but remember, if you are using range, you have to end this, and for each category I'm gonna call an anchor tag. Right now I can delete the others, and instead of this homepage I'm gonna use the permalink of this category and the name of this category. Remember, we are inside this range right now, so it's gonna choose our category name, not the post name. So even if we have here name, it's not gonna choose it because we are in this loop. And let's see. Okay, again, I just tried to fix my lines, but it destroyed our images. Get term is going to be get terms. Okay. So when I click here, it automatically fetches all the posts belong to this general category name. So we don't have to create any functionality. Hugo does everything for us. So let's change some categories here in our contents. For example, it's going to be general, live, and coding, travel, and culture, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Okay, perfect. This is how easy to filter your items. Just create an array and use it on your URL. So I can do the same thing for username. Remember, we have an array here, we can use it. Let's change some of them. It's gonna be John Doe, Jane Doe. Okay, let's open up our list again. I'm gonna close my menu, and inside this span, again, I will say range, get terms, and it's gonna be authors. And I'm gonna add this here, don't forget. By the way, if you make any mistake and destroy your application, just open your console and restart your application. Okay, and inside this span, let's create an anchor tag again. It's gonna be permalink, and here is gonna be the name of the user. And as you can see, there is a problem here, because by default you can filter your items using categories, but the author is not defined in Hugo. To prevent this, let's open up our settings and add here taxonomies. And I'm gonna say author will be authors inside our content here. Let's check right now. And perfect. But in this case, we don't have our categories because we just override our taxonomies. By default, there is a category, but in this case, we just remove this and edit this author. Let's add this back. Category will be categories. Okay, let's choose Lama Dev. As you can see, 3 posts. Let's get back HTML, and perfect. It works like that. So you can add here any taxonomy you want. You can add tags or any other filters. It depends on you. Okay. So let's close everything. So what about the single page? When I click here, It opens my page and let's see what we have inside. We have two sections, this head and this content, and this is our markdown. And next to our content, we have a component that shows any advertisement or menu. So basically you can add here a right bar, but also you can use this right bar inside the list page somewhere here. So instead of using this in the single page, I'm going to create a new partial, so it's going to be reusable. Let's do that. I'm going to open up partials and I will say right bar. Let's create a div and inside an image, and the source will be images ads.webp. Let's give a description. It's going to be just add. And the class name will be right bar image. Okay, let's open up single page and let's remember again. We are going to have two parts, top and bottom. Let's say single head, single bottom. And inside this head, again, two sections are texts and image. So let's copy this. Single head texts and after an image. So I can use directly my post title here. And remember, it's going to be inside params dot image, but it's going to be image big. Remember, we have two images, image and image big. And inside texts, again, title, description, some details, but our date will be under this detail. So let's say h1 single head title. I'm going to add here my title quickly. P tag. It's going to be params description. So let's create single head detail. And inside image username tags params.avatar, and I will say loading lazy. And let's give class name single avatar because it's going to be bigger. And after this image, again, span and username. Remember how we are using. I will say range, get terms, and the array name is going to be authors. And I'm going to add this here. And between that, I'm going to create an anchor tag. It's going to be the link of the user. And here is going to be the username. And finally, after this span, after this username, I can add my tags. So I'm going to use exactly the same thing. Range, get terms. This time it's going to be categories. Like that. But of course, let's give here class name and single category. Okay. I forgot adding this time. Let's add quickly. After detail, I will say time. And remember how we are using this date format. We are going to use our site settings and params inside and date format. Let's see. Okay, all items are here. And after this, we can add our markdown and this right bar. So inside bottom container, so I will say single content. And this is how we are using our content. Just dot and content. That's all. And after that, let's create another div and it's going to be single right bar. And inside this, we can use our component. Remember how we are doing this. Partial, and the name of this partial is going to be right bar. Okay, perfect. So let's give a style. For the head, it's gonna be horizontal. I'm gonna separate them, give space here. And again, texts will be vertical, space between each item. Let's do that. Again, I'm gonna open up my CSS file and move it here. Let's close this menu and let's start. After this list, I will say single start and between them, let's start with this head. I will say display flags, align item center, justify content will be space between, and gap between our image and texts will be 20 pixels. Like that. Let's make them vertical and give space, and after I'm gonna increase this font size. Single head texts, display flags, flags direction column, gap between each item, and for this title, font size 48 pixels. Okay, let's increase this also, this description. It's gonna be 20 pixels and the font weight will be 300. And what about this avatar? It's too big. It's gonna be 50 pixels. I will say border radius 50%, so it's gonna be a circle, and object fit will be cover. Oops. I said avatar, but the class name is single avatar. Okay, now as you can see, they are not centered because we didn't use our details. Display flags, align item center, and gap between items will be 20. Okay, so let's give style for our tags, these categories. After this avatar, padding 5 pixels. I'm gonna give border radius, and background color will be BG soft, and the text color will be text soft, and font size will be smaller. Okay, by the way, if we have a longer title, let's open up our content. I'm gonna make this longer. Okay, they are equal. I just typed my image, but if you try to add here some other image, something bigger or smaller, it's gonna destroy this proposition. To prevent this, we can give a fixed size for this image and for this text. Let me explain what I mean. Actually, we can use this image, for example. Let's close this menu. And for this image, I will say images ads.webp. As you can see, our text is much bigger right now. To prevent this, to make them equal like that, I can give a fixed size. 50% will be our text, 50% will be this image. To do that, you can say single head texts with 50%. And for the image, you can do the same thing. But since we are using Flexbox, let's say Flex1. I'm gonna copy. And let's choose our image. Single head image. So flex will be 1. So they are gonna be equal. If I say flex 2, for example, it's gonna be twice bigger than this text. This is how it works. And let's give maximum height. And you can give any height here, so it's not gonna be that big. And as you can see, it looks a little bit weird. To prevent this, I'm just gonna give object width and cover. And this is why we are using object width. It prevents that distortion. Okay, so let's take this back. Params.image. Image big, actually. Oops, typo. Okay, and what about this container? Again, I can separate them. I'm gonna choose single button. Display flags, justify content space between, and gap between items will be minimum 50 pixels. Like that. But as you can see, there is no space here. Let's give margin top. Perfect. And again, I can do the same thing. My text will be 3 times bigger than this right bar. Remember how we are doing this. I'm going to choose single content. And flex will be 3. And single right bar will be flex 1. It didn't change anything, but if I change here, as you can see, half of the container is text and half of the container is right bar. Okay, let's increase our font size, the content font size. Perfect. Actually, let's add a real world content here and we can see better. I'm going to open up my content, 5th one, I think, and I'm going to paste here my content. This is my last blog post. Okay, as you can see, it's pretty ugly, so let's fix it. Firstly, I'm going to give here a line height, and I'm going to increase this number because they were too close each other. Right now it's much better. And since we are using box sizing border box, we don't have any space between our items. We don't have any margin. To prevent this, I can select all my p tags or header tags and I can give some margin. So I'm gonna come here, choose my single content. By the way, I forgot responsive design, but don't worry, we are gonna handle this later. Firstly, let's take care of our content. So I'm gonna choose my content here and p tag inside, and also any h1 tag, h2 tag, let's say h3, and margin will be 20 pixels from top and bottom, and from left and right will be 0. Okay, it's much better right now. By the way, there's a space here because in our content, as you can see, I just gave spaces, so it makes them different p tags. This is why we are seeing those spaces. Okay. And when we add here any image, it's gonna overflow. To prevent this, I'm gonna choose single content and every image inside, and its size will be 100%. And again, object width cover. So it's not gonna overflow anymore. So what about these codes? As you can see, there is no space. And when we shrink our page, when we use smaller devices, it's gonna overflow. To prevent this, I'm gonna choose my code, but which element I'm gonna be using, let's check. I'm gonna right click, inspect, and as you can see, each line is a span, but the parent is this element. So I'm gonna change this one. Single content is gonna be 100%, and if it overflows, we will be able to scroll inside this element. It's not gonna overflow, and let's say padding 20 pixels. Okay. Of course, you can add here any font family. Let's open up Google Fonts. You can choose any font you want. This is the most popular one. Let's choose. I'm gonna choose just the regular and bold. We are not using something between. And let's copy this link. Open up our base component. And I'm gonna paste it here. And to use this font family, we should use this CSS line. I'm gonna copy. Inside my body, I will say font family Roboto. Okay. Let's close. As you can see, it's much better right now. So let's check the responsiveness. Let's open our console again. As you can see, it's overflowing because we didn't give any size for the image. I'm gonna come here. After single, I will say right bar start and end. By the way, when we scroll down, I still want to see my right bar. We are gonna see this image. To do that, I can use position sticky. And I should give here any position to stick. Remember, our navbar size is 100 pixels. So after this navbar, our component can be sticky. So let's say top 100 pixels. Like that. By the way, I can do the same thing for my navbar. Let's come here. I will say position sticky. And the top will be 0. Like that. But as you realize, there is no background color. So I'm gonna come here and say background color and BG. Okay. Of course, it's still overflowing. We didn't give size. So I'm gonna choose my image. Did I give class name or not? Okay, I gave. It's gonna be 100%. Height will be 100%. And the object fit will be cover. Okay. But at this point, as you can see, it's that small that we cannot see the image anymore. And in this point, what I'm gonna do is removing this component, this image, and adding this here horizontally. To do that, we are gonna need another image. Let's duplicate this, add square, and it's gonna be add horizontal. Let's see. As you can see, it's the horizontal version. At the beginning, it's gonna be invisible, but at this point, when it disappears, we are gonna see it somewhere here. Let's do that. Let's say right bar image horizontal. At the beginning, display will be none. We are not gonna see it. And after this point, I'll say display block. And in this case, we can remove this one. It's gonna be invisible. So I will say display none. Of course, our container is still horizontal. That's why we can't see our image. What I'm gonna do is make this container vertical. So we will be able to see our image here. It's not gonna be horizontal anymore. So I'm gonna come here and say, let's check. Single bottom. Flex direction will be column. Let's see, it's gonna be under our text. But this is not the breakpoint that we want. As you can see, it's here, but I want to move them. Let's cut and paste here. It's much better, I think. Okay. But as you can see, it's not 100%. And perfect. But I don't want to see this at the end of the screen. It should be before our text. It's an advertisement. So instead of column, I'm going to say column reverse. Like this. Okay, awesome. As you can see, this image is overflowing. Actually, we can remove this. It's not necessary to see our image at this point. So I'm gonna say, what was the name? Single head image. Display none. Perfect. As you can see, it's much better right now. And for the big screens, we will be able to see our image here. So let's check the home page. For the big screen, there is nothing wrong. When I shrink, and at this point, actually I can remove this image. So I'm gonna come here and remember, list item image, and display will be none. Like that. It's much clearer right now. So what about this category page? When I click here, as you can see, it calls the list page again, but it's looking for categories just like our posts. But we don't have any category page or category user. It doesn't make sense. So what I'm gonna do is, instead of showing this post list, I'm just gonna show the category name and I'm gonna show how many posts belong to that category. Let's check here. As you can see, just categories and the numbers. How I'm gonna do that? I'm gonna close everything and let's open our menu. And inside layouts, I'm gonna create another folder and it's gonna be categories. And inside again, we are gonna have our lists. Let's copy and paste. But I'm gonna change this page because when we have any category name like coding, we are gonna see our posts. But when we don't have anything, we are gonna show our categories. So I'm gonna need here a condition. After this main, I'm gonna create my condition and I will say if the URL is only categories, if there is nothing after this, show the categories, if not, show the posts. To do that, I'm gonna use if equals and I'm gonna check my URL using rel permalink and I'm gonna aspect this to equals categories. Nothing else after. So in this case, I'm gonna show something, let's say test. If not, I'm gonna use else. I'm gonna show this list. In this case, I need to end here. Of course, we ended our block, but we are using else. We shouldn't use this. I'm gonna save and I'm gonna restart my application. And perfect. If I say coding, as you can see, our post is here. So instead of this test, let's show our categories. Let's remove this. And again, we are going to be using a loop, range, and how we are going to choose the all categories inside our application. To do that, I'm going to be using site taxonomies, and I'm going to choose my categories, and I want to count my posts. So I'm going to use by count, and it's going to return our categories with the post numbers. By the way, I need here the $sign, and inside this range, you can use hashtag, and I will say the category name. Let's use small text, and we are going to show here the number of posts. So I will say count. Of course, let's add here an anchor tag. And when we click on those categories, we are going to open up the single category page and it's going to show our posts. So I will say categories and I'm going to add here the name of the category. And since we are using here range, I should close it here. And let's see. Oh, this source again. I'm gonna delete this. And let's run. Okay, line 41, probably the same problem. Like this. Okay, let's see. As you can see, all the tags are here. CSS and perfect. Okay, if you want to, you can give different style for them, but it can stay like that. So let's take care of this light mode. When I click here, it's gonna change the background color and also the text color. Basically, we are gonna reverse our PG and text variables. How I'm gonna do this? Let's first create this component. Inside Navbar, I'm gonna create a toggle component, and inside this component we are gonna have two icons, this moon and sun, and using this ball we will be able to switch between our modes. I can close them, open up my Navbar, and inside links, before this homepage link, let's create toggle. And inside I'm gonna add my SVGs, sun and moon, and between them we are gonna have this ball div. Basically it's gonna be this div. When I click, it's gonna change the mode and its position so we can see the other icon here. In order to do that, we are gonna need a JavaScript file. Let's come inside this folder and say app.js. And to use this JavaScript in our entire application, we need to define this in the base of HTML. Before this body, I will say script, and the source will be js app.js. Let's test. I will say console log. Let's see. I'm gonna come here, open up my console, and as you can see, it's here, it's working. Let's give a style and after choose our items using this JavaScript file. I'm gonna open up my style here. And inside Navbar, I will say toggle. I'm gonna give some size and border radius will be 50 pixels. Cursor will be pointer so we can click. Let's make our items horizontal and gap between each item will be 5 pixels. Okay, let's give background and border so we can see better. I will say BG soft and the border will be 0.5 pixels, solid and text soft. Let's give padding inside and see. Okay, perfect. So let's give a style for the ball. So I'm gonna say 19 pixels and it's gonna be a circle, and I'm gonna give absolute positioning because we are gonna change its position. At the beginning it's gonna be left 0. Let's give background. This time it's gonna be text soft, and again let's give a border 1 pixel, solid and BG soft. So 1 pixel border, 19 pixel size. In total it's gonna be 20 pixels. Okay, of course if you are using position absolute, the parent should be position relative. Perfect. And when I click on this toggle, we are gonna move this ball to the right side. But how we are gonna decide this? Firstly, we are gonna check if we are already using light mode or dark mode. We can store this information in our local storage. Let's close here. And I will say const mod, and I'm going to check my local storage and get item, and I'm going to search for mod. If it exists, we are going to assign this value here. If not, it's going to be just an empty string. And after that, I'm going to choose my toggle, this div, const toggle. I will say document query selector, and I can choose my div using its class name. And I'm gonna also choose my body because we are gonna change its color, this background and font color, like that. Of course, it's not a class name. It's gonna be directly body. And using this mod, I can change the class name of my body. To do that, I will say document body, and class name is gonna be mod. So if the value is light, the class of the body will be light. You are gonna understand better right now. I will say toggle and add event listener, and it's gonna be a click event. When I click on this div, let's see first. I'm gonna test, open up my console and click. Okay, it works. By the way, we are going to handle this responsiveness, but before, let's take care of this dark mode. And when I click on this button, I'm going to change the value of this mode in the local storage. So I will say local storage set item, and I'm going to write a condition here. If the mode is light, it's gonna be empty. If it's not, it's gonna be light. So what happened here? Let's say we don't have anything in the local storage. It's gonna be an empty string. When I click on this button, it's gonna check my mode. If it's light, it's gonna be an empty string. If it's already empty string, it's gonna be light. And right now I can toggle the class name of this body. So I will say body.classList, and I'm gonna toggle. Let's check. I'm gonna open my console and choose elements. As you can see, there is no class name, but when I click, it's gonna be light. If I click again, it's gone. It works like that. And using this class name, I can change this background and text color. Let's open up CSS. And I will say if body is light, background color will be this color, and this text color will be this dark color. So let's change them. It's gonna be here, and this is gonna be here. As you can see, it's white. When I click, it's dark. Okay. And I can change the position of this ball. Let's search for ball. And I will say, if it's the light mode, left will be unset and the right will be 0. Okay, so when it's the mobile screen, we can remove this text. Let's come here and say search button. Let's check search button and span insight. I will say display none. Okay, it's much better. And what else? As you can see, we don't have any pagination here. It's really easy to add. Let's open up our list. I'm gonna close everything first. And let's open up our list here. And if you remember, we are using Paginator. It allows us to create pagination. To add this template, I'm gonna come here and say template internal pagination.html. It comes from Hugo. We are not writing any function. We are not creating any file. I'm just gonna save here. And after, I'm gonna open up my settings and I should provide here how many posts I want to see in one page. So I will say paginate. Let's say 2, for example. We are gonna change it later. And as you can see, we have 3 pages. The first page, when I click here, it's gonna open up the page 2 and the last one. It's that easy, guys. We don't need any plugin or something. Just write this template and change the style. Let's open up our inspector. As you can see, the main container is pagination and each item is page item. And we will be able to disable those pages or make them active if we are in that page. So let's close this console and give our style. I'm gonna open up style and I'm gonna find my list. Okay. At the end of this list, I can create my pagination. And firstly, I'm gonna make this display flags. So it's gonna be horizontal. Let's give gap between them. And remember, it's a list. So by default, it has those dots. To prevent this, I'm gonna say list style and none. I'm gonna also delete the padding, default padding and margin. And font size will be 14 pixels. Like that. Let's give a space here from top and bottom. And for each link, I'm gonna give a border, page link, 1 pixel, solid, and let's say gray, for example, like that. And let's increase size. And I'm gonna center my item inside. And let's give border radius. It's gonna be 5 pixels. Like that. And when it's active, in this case, it's gonna be number 1. We are in this page. Let's choose this class name again. And active. The background color will be, let's say, text. And the color will be background color. Okay, it's not here. Oh, it's gonna be page item, not link. Link is inside. Let's change here also. Perfect. And if it's disabled, I'm gonna change my cursor and also this background color. Let's duplicate this and I'm gonna say disabled. Let's give this dark color and the cursor will be not allowed. Like that. It's that easy. So I can do the same thing for my category page. When I choose any item here, again, we are gonna see this pagination. So I'm gonna copy this and paste for categories. Of course, there is 2 items. If I change here, we are gonna have 2 pages. Okay, let's change here and make this 4. It's here. So let's see how we can improve the search engine optimization. I've already given the first tip. When you use any image, try to use SVG or WebP extension. Do not use any large PNGs or any other file types, and it makes your application faster. But the most important thing is metadata. Let's inspect our website. Inside head tag, as you can see, we don't have any title or description. So I'm gonna open up my base HTML, as you can see, it's empty. But if you remember, inside our settings, we have the page title. We can use it. So I'm gonna come here and I will say directly title. And it's gonna automatically change the title of the page. If it's the home page, as you can see, it's gonna be Lama Dev blog because it comes from our settings. But if I open this post, for example, as you can see, the title is the post title. And it comes from our content here. So what about description? Again, when we are in the single page, we are gonna use this description, the post description. But if we are in the home page, we are gonna use a general description. Let's open up our settings again, and inside params, I'm gonna create description, and let's write here the fastest blog. But remember, this title and this title are default. We didn't create them, but the descriptions are not default. We created them. So if I use meta, name will be description, and the content will be either our main description or this post description. So we need a condition here. I will use or, and we are going to check our post description first. Params.description. And if we are not on the single page, we are going to use this general description. Remember how we are choosing this. I will say site, params, and description. Let's check. I'm going to open my console. As you can see, the fastest blog, but if I choose my post, this is the description, which is the post description. So right now, our metadata is dynamic. It's changing according to our post pages and the home page. And right now, search engines can index our pages. And that's all, I think. Of course, you can add different components. You can change your content type. You can add new features. Just play around this layout and your metadata and try to add new features. So let's close everything and deploy our application. To do that, I'm going to open up my terminal. Right now, I can terminate my server and I'm going to build my application. To do that, I will just say Hugo. And as you can see, it created all our pages, our static files like images, CSS and JavaScript file, sitemap. Let's open up public folder. As you can see, all these files are here. The only thing I should do is upload these files inside our server. Let's open up the Hostinger panel. And in this panel, you can see your hosting details and your domains. You can add different subdomain for each project, for example. But let's leave it like that. We are going to use this domain. And I'm going to choose File Manager. And we are going to upload our files inside this public HTML. Right now it's empty. If there's a default file here, just remove that. And after you are ready to upload your files. I'm going to open up my app folder and inside public, I'm going to choose all my folders and files. I'm going to drag and drop them into my server. And that's all. Let's check. I'm going to click here. And as you can see, our website is ready. But there is something wrong here. When I click, it opens example.org because in our application, I forgot to change my base URL. Let's open up settings. As you can see, we didn't add here our domain. Let's add. I'm gonna copy and paste here. And I'm gonna build again. By the way, guys, it just takes 17 milliseconds. So even if you have thousands of pages, doesn't matter, it will probably take less than 1 second. This is how fast Hugo generates pages. Let's do the same thing. I'm gonna remove my folders. And move it back. Let's check. I'm gonna refresh. And right now it shows my domain. When I click, it's gonna open up my page. Perfect. And we are using HTTPS connection. You don't have to install anything. By default, your connection will be secure. And that's all. Let's check our toggle. Perfect. Homepage, pagination, categories. Let's choose any user here. Okay, awesome, it works. Let's check our sitemap. As you can see, it includes all the pages we have. And that's all. I hope you liked it. If you learned something new today, please like the video. You can support Lama Dev by joining the channel or using the link in the description below. Don't forget to follow Lama Dev's social media accounts. I hope I'll see you in the next tutorial. Goodbye.